Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Sunshine Coast Regional District Electoral Area Services Committee. My name is Kate Stanford, and I'm chairing the meeting today. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge that we are meeting here today on the lands and territories of the Sechalt and Squamish people. Thank you. Committee members, we have an agenda here. Is there any requests for changes or additions? Seeing none, I'd like to adopt the agenda. Do I have a seconder? You have a seconder? All those in favor? And that passes. Also, I'd like a motion to receive all reports. Got a seconder? All those in favor? Thank you very much. Our first item on the agenda today is we have a delegation. Mark Bailey, Chair of the Roberts Creek Official Community Plan Committee. If you'd like to come and speak, the microphone's up there.
Good morning, Madam Chair, directors, and staff. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. As a Roberts Creek resident, community volunteer, and former school trustee, I've gained a deep respect for how much work goes into these regional processes. And I'm here to speak today with a spirit of partnership and community building. My name is Mark Bailey, and I'm a resident of Roberts Creek and chair of the Roberts Creek Official Community Plan Commission, or RCOCPC. It's a bit of a mouthful, but I'll be repeating it a few times this morning. I'd like to talk about who we are, our relationship with the SCRD, and how we hope to strengthen that relationship, particularly as we move forward deeper into the OCP renewal process. The Roberts Creek OCPC is a long-standing community-elected body that supports, protects, and helps guide the implementation of the Roberts Creek Official Community Plan. Our members are all elected volunteers who engage directly with the concerns of Roberts Creek residents and work to ensure that the community's vision for its future is respected and reflected in planning decisions. You will, of course, be familiar with the Roberts Creek Official Community Plan, which outlines the guiding principles for land use, environmental protection, and development in our community. What you may not be as familiar with is the fact that our committee, the Roberts Creek Official Community Plan Commission, is specifically named in Appendix B of Bylaw 641. It's buried near the back on page 123 if you want to look that up. This establishes us as an official advisory body tasked with safeguarding the intent of the OCP and acting as a voice for the community. In practice, we act as a liaison between the residents of Roberts Creek and local government, ensuring that community perspectives are considered in long-term planning. We collaborate with our area director and other local organizations to engage the public and advocate for responsible, community-driven development. We are here today because earlier this year, we were not invited to the initial SCRD-led presentation delivered to the Roberts Creek Advisory Planning Commission as part of the OCP renewal process. We fully acknowledge that this was likely an honest oversight, but we felt it would be important to reach out directly to ensure that the RCOCPC is top of mind moving forward, fully acknowledged in its official capacity and able to contribute to this important process. As the OCP renewal moves ahead, it is essential that the RCOCPC is included in all discussions that impact Roberts Creek. We would like to strengthen our working relationship with the SCRD for 3 reasons. First, to ensure meaningful community engagement. The RCOCPC is well positioned to help facilitate productive dialogue with our residents. We have deep local knowledge and experience which can help SCRD staff and directors make decisions that better reflect community values. Second, we are requesting formal acknowledgement of our role. We appreciate Director Kelly Back's ongoing support and advocacy on our behalf. We recognize that, at your last meeting, Director Bax was empowered by this committee to invite us into consultations at his discretion. While this was a positive step, we feel it still falls short of reaffirming our formal role as outlined in the Roberts Creek OCP. A clearer, more structured relationship would enable better coordination with SCRD staff and ensure our community's perspectives are fully represented. Third, we respectfully request that we be included in all relevant OCP renewal consultations and workshops, including those involving the Roberts Creek Advisory Planning Commission. Our inclusion will help ensure that the voice of the Roberts Creek community remains central in shaping the renewed OCP. By working more closely together, we believe we can help create a more efficient, collaborative, and transparent process. Strengthening our partnerships will support both SCRD staff and directors by providing additional local insight and historical context. It will also help build public trust by showing residents that local government values meaningful community engagement. Excuse me. We understand that the SCRD has many competing priorities, and we want to be part of the solution. Our goal is to be a helpful partner that supports, not complicates, the work of the board and staff. In closing, we respectfully ask for the following. First, formal recognition of the RCOCPC's advisory role within the OCP renewal process. Second, our inclusion in all OCP renewal-related consultations and workshops involving the Roberts Creek APC. And third, a commitment to strengthening collaboration between the RCOCPC, the SCRD, board, and senior staff. We believe that this will help ensure a successful OCP renewal and a stronger relationship with the Roberts Creek community. Thank you for your time. I would be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Do any of the committee members have any questions or comments brief to Mr. Bailey? Director Bax.
Thank you. I'd just like to say that I've been interacting with the OCPC for the 2.5 years that I've been in this position, and although it hasn't always been smooth, it's a very they're a very dedicated group of people that know our community and know our OCP very, very well. And at this point in history, I think it's I think it would be the best thing that the regional district could do is to lean on these members of my community who have this knowledge and to engage. We're looking to renew our OCPs, and an engagement in the public is the only way that I see that they can be properly renewed. I feel I'm very lucky to have this group in my community. Thank you.
Director Gabias.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, delegation, for your presentation. So one of the requests is to be recognized as a formal group, or I can't remember exactly, formal recognition of, to be part of the OCP renewal. Question to the delegation, like are there overlaps? Are there some of the members of the OCPC that are also members of the APC? And why, if the OCPC wants to be involved in the OCP renewal process, would a formal way to do it not be to be part of the APC? So question for the delegation through the chair. Thanks.
Mr. Bailey.
Thank you, Director Gabias, and that's an excellent question. And in fact, to demonstrate the value of your question, we actually have several community members that have joined me this morning, two of which happen to be both on the OCPC and the APC. We actually see formally that the OCPC and the APC both have distinct yet complementary roles. So the APC, as you know, is selected by the SCRD to look at specific property-related issues. Whereas the OCPC, the RCOCPC, we're an elected body that is meant to look much more at the wider perspective. So what are the values of the community being reflected? Is the spirit of the OCPC, of the OCP being reflected in the decisions and the development of our community? So you're absolutely right that while there is some overlap, including committee members, we do feel that these two bodies are distinct yet complementary.
I see no further hands or comments. You want to follow up?
I want to keep talking about it. Yes, and I'm really so grateful to see everybody here, and the level of enthusiasm with this project, I think, it's really heartening to see community members wanting to get involved. I'm just wondering if the APC workshops, which were tailored for that distinct group, are the best venue for consultation with the OCPC and other groups that do similar work. I mean, there's one in my area as well. The workshop, the one coming up this month anyway, is an orientation workshop, and it will touch on the role of the APC in the OCP renewal process. So is this really the best venue for different groups who are very valuable? Their voices are really valuable, but they work in different ways than the APC. The APC is formal. We have recommendations. We have minutes. We have, it comes to us formally. So given that the APC workshops are not the only engagement opportunities, is this really the best way to accommodate the different community groups who are very involved, who want to be involved and who are very enthusiastic? So, and what does that mean for APC members who are volunteering their time for the SCRD, for the organization, when other groups can come in, and does it muddy the waters a little bit? So I'm wondering what the rest of the directors think of this.
Any comments, directors?
Oh, I do have a question for staff as to how they envision interacting with these groups that are more organized than the general public. They have a certain knowledge. In Half Moon Bay, there's the Half Moon Bay Development, I don't know the acronym, but I could see, and if there are other groups within the other areas, the communities, that this could be an opportunity for a much more, a kind of an interaction between staff and these community groups that would be at a higher level than the wider community engagement. And so while the director points out that, yes, the upcoming workshop is an orientation specifically for the APC and may not be the right place for this type of engagement with our community groups, I do believe that we can engage in a higher level with more in-depth knowledge and get a better quality of feedback than we would from our average citizen.
Thank you, and I think this is a good conversation that we can continue in our next items on our agenda, which is about OCP engagement updates and where our plans are going. Director McMahon, do you have some comments?
I just had a question. Okay, if it is possible to do this very briefly. Everywhere else in the province, when an OCP process finishes, the committee dissolves, and typically a number of the volunteers who are on the OCP committee join the APC. So that when I was elected, several members of my APC had been on the OCP committee. Why was it different in Roberts Creek?
So yeah, that goes back, and actually, Director Bax and I recently had the opportunity to have coffee with two of the people that were involved in that history. Elaine Fetterman, who is actually still on our committee, her and her husband, who is currently the chair of the APC, as well as other members of our community, lobbied because they felt the value of the OCPC committee. So they valued the work that they had done so much. They wanted to see it extended beyond the lifespan of simply consultation for that OCP process. And so they lobbied to have the commission extended for all the reasons that I've said, to make sure that the spirit of the OCP is ongoing in terms of any kind of community development, and to have community members engaged between the OCP renewal processes, so that once renewal came up, the community would be much more engaged and informed in the process rather than dropped in. I can't speak to the specific. I wasn't part of that history. However, my feeling is that that this was simply about community engagement and ongoing community engagement, and the desire for Roberts Creek to remain engaged in the OCP beyond the formal renewal processes.
Maybe we could add that to our discussion with engagement process. Director Lee, you had a question or a comment to our delegate?
Yes, both. Our APCs are open to the public, and any member of the public can attend, including the entire OCPC.
Bit of a mouthful.
I'm confused why you felt you would need an invitation to attend.
Thank you, Director Lee. That's an excellent question. And we simply feel that whether directors agree or disagree with the fact that the RCOCPC, as Director McMahon has pointed out, why we exist in the interim between renewal processes, we are formally recognized in the bylaw. So we're heavily leaning on that formal recognition within the bylaw that we are an officially recognized commission. And as Director McMahon has pointed out, we're actually quite unique in that regard. So ultimately what we wish to do is we wish to establish a more formal relationship. And I mean relationship much more in a community-minded definition of the word, rather than a formal political relationship. We on the Sunshine Coast, we're a close-knit community. And so we feel as if because of our formal recognition, if we're simply included on correspondences. So an official correspondence from the SCRD saying, hey, this event's happening at the AAPC, we just wish to inform you. And you are you can be included if you wish. So just as any other close relationship, we just want to feel that soft touch, that the SCRD recognizes who we are and we feel included in the process and we feel welcome to these events.
Thank you. And I'll take one more comment from Director Bax briefly, and then I'd like to move on. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yeah, it's a unique situation to the to have an OCPC that's continuing. It is something that was put into the bylaw, and so it's there for everybody to see. It was brought about under the guidance of Director McGilvery, and I've got a list of of the 54 volunteers that created our OCP, of which I know 7 of them personally, including one of our former directors, Donna Sugar. And I do feel that this is a resource that's available to staff, and that it would be a travesty to ignore. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bax.
Thank you. On that note, thanks very much for your time, Mr. Bailey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, directors, and thank you, senior administration, Madam CAO.
So, directors, we are,
Point of order.
go ahead.
You cannot cut off discussion. You just did.
I'm sorry. You'd like another comment?
Yes, I was trying to find out if the mandate of this commission was formally published anywhere. Does anybody know?
The current Roberts Creek community.
Thank you.
So just for people that are listening in, that was page 123 of the Roberts Creek official community plan. Is that what I recognize? Okay. Thank you. Staff, do you have any follow-up questions? Comments? No? I see your hand up. No. Okay. Are we ready to move on to our next item? Oh, now it's up again. Okay. Oh, I can't see it. Okay, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. So I just want to clarify a little bit the provision that we're looking at in Attachment B, and the OCP does recognize the OCPC as a group. It also provides that the group develop their own governance structure. So therefore, just to be clear, this committee is not a formal committee of the SCRD, so they don't have a direct formal establishment within the SCRD, but they are recognized within the OCP. I just wanted to make that distinction.
Thank you very much.
I just want to let you know that I do attend their monthly meetings as often as I can, and I try to bring back information to the board from those meetings. And the minutes are available on our community, Roberts Creek Community Association website. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bax. Are we ready to move on to the next part of the agenda? I still see, oh, no, that's gone now. Okay, our next item is a request for decision on page 3. It's our official community plan renewal project update. And well, I have page, yeah, but I have page 3 on it. It shows up here. And staff, would you like to introduce this? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Directors, as champions for the OCP renewal project, need to be supported with information. This report for information is the first. Apologies.
Sorry, Senior Manager, we are just trying to find page numbers, but I think we're good. So please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Directors as champions for the OCP renewal project need to be supported with information. This report for information is the first regular update on this project. The public launch of the project is on track for June. Staff are happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Directors, do we have any comments or questions? And are we all on the right page? I just want to make sure recommendations that I have, I've got them on page 3, but apparently they're also on page 5. So it's just making sure the recommendations that the official community plan renewal project engagement strategy be accepted as proposed. So that's the recommendation. And I have comments from Director McMahon, if you'd like to start.
Sure. I'm looking at page 7 now, and my question is, if you could remind me what we need to do to be compliant with the small-scale multi-unit housing zoning requirement. Is that only Area A that's not compliant? And if so, would amendments to bylaw 337 bring us into compliance?
Go ahead, staff.
Thank you, Chair. And staff just wish to clarify. So this is the project update report. It's an information report. There are no recommendations. We're just want to make sure we're answering questions on the right report.
I have a feeling we're on 2 different agendas, which is, and I recognize that I'm probably looking at an original document. So I just want to make sure that we are looking at the 4.1 official community plan OCP renewal project update. So that's not there's no decisions. It's just questions of clarification to the update. Sorry about this. I have a different agenda in front of me.
Thank you for the assurance. And in responding to the answer, or responding to the question for clarity, the requirements that apply to SCRD related to small-scale multi-unit housing are to consider zoning changes for areas that have both wastewater and community water service. In SCRD, our wastewater treatment plant served areas, our service areas, need to be assessed for the ability to change the zoning without creating a hazard or a risk. And so that's the work that remains to be done. And that's important to the official community plan project because those are potential areas of growth. Thank you.
Director Lee, you have a question?
Thank you, Chair. I believe it's just clarification on the question that was just asked. Does bylaw changes or OCP changes, I guess, to allow suites in any existing dwelling, is that dependent on being on regional water and sewer? Otherwise, it wouldn't apply? Or does that apply throughout the area?
Staff, would you like to respond?
Thank you for the question, Chair. The answer is no. Community sewer is a factor, but it is not the only factor. Thank you.
Director Bax, you have a question?
Yeah, I do have a question. In the recommendation number 1, which appears in my agenda on page 5, the recommendation, sorry, excuse me.
That's a February 27th.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so we're having a hard time this morning. I see that. And so, do we have any new recommendations? No? Okay. All right, because I just thought that this particular recommendation, A, kind of got the cart before the horse, and it needed to be discussed a lot more. I'm too late. All right, thank you.
Okay, I'm not entirely sure where you are, but that's okay. Director McMahon, I'd like you can speak again, and I'll get back to Director Lee.
Sure, I want to join the festivities here. What is a responsive infrastructure analysis? Could you expand a little upon that?
Staff?
Thanks for the question. A responsive infrastructure analysis will essentially look at the key factors related to growth to make sure that we have the right things in the ground to support the growth that we are trying to do for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Lee?
It actually was the second half of my earlier question, and that is, it says that next month we're going to engage the province with SMUs. Anyways, is suites included in that? That's the entire Bill 44 you're talking to them about, is it?
Can you just say the last part again so that I can hear it?
There's two aspects to the Bill 44 and 46. And one is to allow suites in any existing dwelling if the owners want them. And the other one is to allow a second dwelling on the property. And I was just wondering if we're asking the province to extend our time to respond to both of those, or if we're working on them now.
Senior Manager Hall, do you have any response to that?
Thank you, Chair. The answer is yes. Bill 44 deals with suites or auxiliary dwelling units. Thank you.
And are all those all your question? No follow-up, Director Lee? Or would you like to wait?
No, I just was trying to get my hand down. I was just, I understood that was the case, but then I became alarmed I might have had it wrong, so.
Director McMahon?
Yeah, on page 13, where growth options will be developed, could you give me an example of a growth option?
We are conflating the two reports, unfortunately.
See, I'm adding to the confusion. Excellent. Thank you. I'll come back with that later.
Director Bax, do you have something for this update? Comments for this update?
I'm looking at the timeline, and I wanted to mention again that there are community events happening that are kind of outside of what the timeline shows for community engagement. And I encourage staff to try to find the capacity to join the different communities in their different events. Earth Day is coming up in Roberts Creek. I believe it's April 27th. And yes, April 27th. And I think it would be, it says that the community engagement is going to begin in May, but this is late April. And I encourage staff to participate at the Earth Day event as a public engagement. It would go a long ways to help the public to understand what the SCRD is doing, and it could be a great shot in the arm for our reputation.
Can I challenge the director back to make sure that staff are aware and have a heads up ahead of time of any specific events you'd like them to attend? And that can run
Yes, and so I would love to speak with staff later about some of the nuts and bolts about participating in Earth Day and liaising with the Roberts Creek Community Association in order to get them a table and so that they may engage. Thank you. And I'll be there for pretty much the whole day anyway.
Thank you. I think that's just a comment in general, is, unless staff have a specific response to that. Go ahead, Senior Manager Hall.
Thank you. Staff are very keen to engage with the community and meet people where they're at. We'll be talking about that in the next item on the agenda. Appreciating there's overlap between this update and the next item. I did want to say we have as outlined in this update, this report, we do have a compact, stepwise, sequential development on this project to meet the timeline that the board has directed staff to hit. And we will be working every day between now and a launch in late May or early June. We will not be ready to meet the public on this project for this April, possibly for round 3 for 2027. But I do know that SCRD is looking at other projects that are in an engagement phase and would be a good fit for that Earth Day event. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I'm seeing no other questions, and I think it's time to move on to the next report that we're kind of already in the middle of. So I'd like to move on to the official community plan renewal project engagement strategy. No, this one's, we've got a decision. Renewal project update, which I have on 4.1. I don't know why these are mixed up, but we're moving on to decision items. And I have it on page 5, but is that correct? I've got it, okay, somebody else has it on page 10. So let's all go to page 10. And that's what we're going to talk about right now. Staff, would you like to introduce this?
Thank you, Chair. So beginning on page 10 of the agenda that I have here, this staff report presents an overall framework for the official community plan renewal engagement strategy, which responds to the approved project scope. And the engagement strategy draft is on attachment A, which begins on page 13 of the agenda. Phase 1 of the engagement is planned for June through September of 2025. Details for Phase 1, including the general sequence, location, and types of engagement activities, will be presented in an April committee report. And presentation on the draft materials to be used for Phase 1 will follow in a May committee report. Staff are recommending endorsement of the engagement strategy included in the report as attachment A and are available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Do we have any further questions? But we do have a request for decision here. Director McMahon.
Yeah, I noticed that with the various types of engagement, one thing that is not included is surveys. So does staff anticipate doing any surveys of the community?
Staff?
Thank you for the question, and absolutely that could form part of the both online or in-person information gathering. Thank you.
Follow-up?
Yeah, I think particularly in Elphinstone, as we do not have, Elphinstone Days or other, and we don't have a community center that we're going to have to get a little creative, I think, about our outreach. And yes, so I think surveys, especially on particular topics, because broad survey on everything to do with the OCP is a bit unmanageable. But when we're drilling into topics as they come up, even during the OCP process, that would be an opportunity. Thanks.
Thank you. Director Lee.
Thank you, Chair. It's actually a question a little bit off of topic, actually, but It does mention here under recommendation 1 that the pillars of housing and climate/environment. Is there a definition somewhere I could refer my residents to on those two? I couldn't find them. So,
Staff, do you have a response for that?
Thank you. And so when looking at the direction that the board has provided previously to make those two pillars the focus of the project, they are not defined, and that is an area where staff will be working with our directors as project champions to determine how we engage with the project or with the community in order to bring definition to those and ensure that the director's perspective on what needs to form part of those pillars is worked into the project as we move forward. Thank you.
Do you have a follow-up, or are you good?
no, I'm good. Yeah, I thought maybe I missed something, but it's more to come. Thank you.
Director Bax.
Thank you. Yeah, I understand capacity issues with staff and that Earth Day is a little too early for them to look to our community. I am looking at the recommendations as the option 1 recommendation as it appears on page 11, and tying it in with the engagement strategy for attachment A. I believe that the final few words is the roles of the directors and the APCs. It should also be added to include the community stakeholders. It's a bit too narrow, and it does discuss engaging with stakeholders in the engagement strategy. And so I do believe that this option is a bit too narrow.
So if you have an alternate motion you would like us to consider, then please provide that.
My motion would be to add the words at the end of that sentence, and community stakeholders. Sorry, it's on page 11, option 1, endorse the engagement strategy included as attachment A. The overview of the engagement approach is attached by project phase, including the purpose, inputs, key considerations, and risks, as well as the role for directors, APCs, and community stakeholders.
Yeah.
No?
So that is a separate motion from what we're being looked at on page 10. And I would, just for consideration, because it has not been seconded as it's stated, that I'm not sure if it's tight enough then, because we don't know who the stakeholders are. And what it's doing is asking staff to define a role for stakeholders. And maybe that's something that directors can work on. It's just a suggestion. But I'm at this point, because we don't have any recommendations, that hasn't been seconded, it would have to stand alone as a motion, if that's correct. And I'm not sure how it stands alone right now, because it's a sentence within a report that refers to an attachment. So if we can come back to this if you'd like to further clarify how your motion fits into what we're talking about right now. Okay. Director we haven't heard from Director Gabius on this yet, so if you'd like to speak to it.
Thank you, Chair. And we're getting used to a new report template, and there's some growing pains. But by the way, I really love the new reports. They're way easier to read and understand, and they're really good for decision making. So kudos to that. But yeah, we'll get used to them. And agreed that I think the reason why the roles are there, the directors and APCs, because we asked for clarification of those roles. But again, if we then start going into like what the community's role is, the community's role is to be engaged and to engage in the process. I don't know. Anyway, that's not on the floor, so no need to debate it. I wanted to move the recommendations on page 10 and also thank staff for the report and the I really appreciated the engagement overview. I remember the engagement plan from October, and that was wordy and there was a lot of information in there. This made it way easier to see like at a high level how it's going to play out. So I really appreciated that that information there. So yes, moving the recommendations on page 10. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder? I see a seconder in Director Lee. We have a couple more hands up, so if we'd like to make a comment or speak to the motion. Director McMahon.
Well, I had a question, not speaking directly to the motion, but on page 16, and I realize that this will be more of a discussion in future, but underrepresented groups, by definition, are not in the room right now. So how do we find them? How do we identify who is underrepresented? How do we know if we've reached them? And a lot of underrepresented demographics are not organized into groups. Like I've read a lot of engagement strategies for places like the city of Vancouver, and it seems to assume that, you know, left-handed Lithuanians have an association and will come out for things. But do we have any thoughts about how we identify the underrepresented?
Staff.
Yeah, thank you for the question, and digging into engagement design philosophy here a little bit. The part of the answer is more details will be coming as we move forward to build out individual phases, and we will be looking for input and advice from directors on this very question. And secondly, SCRD is fortunate to have relationships with agencies such as Vancouver Coastal Health, who can provide access into other networks. A third part of the answer is that's part of the importance of meeting people where they're at, rather than relying on structured engagements that sometimes have barriers to participation, or engaging with formal networks that tend to represent certain types of interests or demographics. But it will be a question that we will be talking with directors about as part of the April report, and will be something that we will be supporting you with on an ongoing basis through this project. Thank you.
Thank you. I still see several hands up, and I'm just going to go with what I see on the screen. So yours is not up. Residual? Okay. Director Lee.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank staff on the official community plan, engagement plan. I liked it. It answered all my questions, except for the one that Director McMahon just asked. And so now I'm perfectly happy. So thank you.
Director McMahon.
Okay, you can tell I'm eager to dig into this, but so is our engagement strategy SCRD wide, or are we going to have sub-engagement strategies for each electoral area?
Staff. I was just getting my head around that one. So.
Thank you, Chair. Part of the answer is the same as the last one. This is something that we will bring you more details for round one next month, and we will be seeking your input and feedback on that. And but staff can say that we are absolutely looking to be geographically inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you. So I don't think there's any more hands, but I do want to reference back to Director Bax, who had a potential motion, but I'm wondering if we could review this offline and maybe come back at our next update and just make sure that your concerns are covered in a way that is clear within the reports.
Yeah, I thank you, Madam Chair. I think I'm one meeting behind the rest of the board as far as understanding the new format for the, and so there's some of my confusion. And my biggest question is that the recommendation that appears on page 10 includes everything that's written below it, as far as I know. But there is, on page 11, there's a option 1 and option 2, and I was wondering how that decision, we used to do, in the former one, we used to have to choose an option. Now, this appears to have 2 options, and neither one is recommended or not. And so I'm trying to understand how that works within the context of the recommendation.
Staff, can I just get clarity on the outline of option 1 and 2 and how it relates to the overall recommendation that is now on the table?
Thank you, Chair. Option 1 is the recommended option. Thank you.
Follow-up?
Go ahead.
Sorry. And thereby the option 1 being the recommended I'm not quite happy with it. I think it is a little too narrow in its approach. But that said, I know that there will be community engagement in all these events that are going forward at every step, and I trust that staff understands my point of view.
So as chair, if it's okay with the directors, we have a recommendation that has been seconded. Rather than going through the amendment nightmare, would it be okay in this case to move forward and have the vote? And then we will continue to look at ensuring that your concerns are addressed moving forward. This is something for consideration. So are we ready to vote on this motion? I'm seeing general nods, so I would like to call a vote. All those in favor? And I'm in favor of that. All those opposed? And there's one opposed. Would you like your vote recorded?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So that passes. So our next item is hopefully the Roberts Creek Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw number 641.15 and Zoning Amendment Bylaw 722.8 for 2820 Lower Road, consideration of third reading and adoption. And that's on page 18. And Planner Jones, would you like to introduce?
Thank you, Chair. This staff report relates to Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw 641.15 and Zoning Amendment Bylaw 722.8 for 2820 Lower Road, Electoral Area D, and it's for consideration of third reading and adoption. The purpose of this application is to reverse a lot consolidation completed in 2006 to facilitate the construction of a new fully accessible single-level home. And to allow for the subdivision of the proposed Lot B, the following is required: an OCP amendment from Residential C to Residential A, a zoning amendment to change the subdivision district to allow for a minimum lot size of 2,000 square meters. This staff report provides a summary of the public hearing, which was held on February 25th, 2025, and includes comments related to the application. The Ministry of Transportation and Transit has approved the zoning bylaw amendment as per section 52 of the Transportation Act. And therefore, staff are recommending at this time that the OCP Amendment Bylaw 64115 and Zoning Amendment Bylaw 722.8 be presented to the board for third reading and adoption. Staff are available for any questions. Thank you.
Directors, any questions of clarification on this report? And or is anybody interested in advancing the motion on page 18? Director Bax.
Thank you. It's very interesting to see this process through. It began shortly after I was elected, and it's coming to fruition today, which is wonderful. And I believe I really think that this outcome is great for everybody involved. And so I would like to move the recommendations as they appear on page 18.
I have a mover and a seconder, and before we vote on that, I would like to go to Director Lee. He has some comments or questions.
Actually, I really enjoyed the addition of the timeline in the new reports, and I just had to say that it was just great to see it. It feels like we are disclosing everything now, and so I'd like to thank staff for that. It's excellent.
Thank you. I see no other hands. We have a motion before us. It's been seconded. If we're ready to vote, all those in favor? And that passes. Thank you very much, staff, and the process for the applicant. That's great. And so now we're moving on to we're good for time. Does anybody need a break or point of order?
Do we have to have third reading and adoption of this change in the bylaw? Not at this moment? Oh,
think
it's
that
in
goes to
at board.
board.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you for the clarification.
So we all seem still fairly fresh. So I'm going to move on to page 45, the zoning amendment bylaw number 722.4 for 1747 Storfold Road, consideration of second reading. Staff, would we like to, Planner Copes, would you like to introduce that?
Yes, thank you, Chair. The purpose of this zoning amendment application is to allow for an assembly use to occur on the property and further to allow for 2 auxiliary dwelling units. The property in question is known as Deer Crossing the Art Farm, which aims to provide space for cultural and educational gatherings and subsidized access to agricultural land and affordable housing. The application was brought to November 21 EAS meeting, where further information was requested. The applicant has provided further details on the uses proposed, and staff have amended the bylaw to provide a specific list of assembly uses that would be permitted. At this time, staff recommend that the bylaw receive second reading and that a public hearing be scheduled. Staff are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, staff. Seeing that there are no other hands up, and this is a report about a property in Area F, which I represent, I have a couple of questions for clarification. First of all, I would like to comment that this does provide a lot more information than we saw back in the original request last year, and I appreciate the clarity of the extra information that provides a lot better sense of where this is going. One of the questions I had is, can a property, these types of properties, look at temporary use permits for specific events? Is that an option that would be available to landholders, regardless of whether this goes through or not? What kind of temporary use permits for single events would be available for a property?
Thank you for the question. It's my belief, based on the official community plan, that as this is a residentially zoned property, that temporary use permits are not typically an option. They're more for a commercially zoned or industrial zoned properties, where typically you see temporary uses.
So as a follow-up, a single event type request, there's no opportunity through the current process for a property to ask for a single event. I know we don't do licenses, but say it's a big wedding, for instance.
Yeah, it's my understanding that we don't have a mechanism that would allow that on a residentially zoned property. That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I have a number of, I've got delegation. Oh, okay. I'm going to start with hands up, Director Lee.
Thank you, Chair. This is a curiosity question. I'm looking at page 46. And the stated goal of the project is to develop a model that would allow for increased density and make land more accessible to farmers and land-based cultural organizations. Is this a farm? Is my question. I wasn't aware this was an active farm.
Staff, would you like to respond?
Through the chair, like I would say, since the first reading application, we kind of followed up with the applicant, and the information they provided is what we have in the agenda. My sense is, though, that yes, there will be a farm component to it to allow and encourage farming. I think some of the workshops they're proposing would be related to farming, but I think they're also looking at other options around spiritual gatherings, workshops related to other aspects as well. So I think they're looking to kind of slightly expand just beyond the farm component.
Thank you, Chair. It was mostly a curiosity question, of course.
Director McMahon.
Right. I have concerns about spot zoning, which I might not go into at the moment. One of my curiosity questions is about notification, because in various processes that we do, we are required to notify neighbors within a certain distance. Is that part of this process? And if so, what is the distance? And can we vary it?
Staff?
Yes, thank you for the question. In accordance with the fees and procedures bylaw, the notification distance for zoning amendment applications is 100 meters for all properties except R1 and R2. So it would be 100 meters notified of any public hearing, for example, and that distance was also notified for the public information meeting.
Follow up?
Yeah, so 100 meters in a rural area is not very much. It's like maybe one or two neighbors, and I think it's hardly adequate. So could we, as I say, vary that and require a larger radius?
Yeah, through the chair, I would just add, if the board wanted to pass a specific resolution around distance, we could expand the notification area.
Director Lee. Planner Jones, I have your hand up. Do you have follow-up clarification? No. Okay. So while Director McMahon is looking for a possible alternative or additional motion, I would just like to say one of the things that I've been looking at with this particular file is the way that the wording has been laid out for assembly use. And the connection runs very closely with the specific proposals of the landholder for spiritual gatherings, for workshops, for farm educational purposes. There's a wide variety of options. But the way the wording for the land use sits is that this property could be sold and purchased by somebody else, and that those specific visions don't necessarily follow the land use. So you could still have assembly use without necessarily following through with low-key, small visions that this particular landholder has. Could the planners provide some clarity as to how the planning words are used for the usage that could follow a different landholder? And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, what if somebody purchased this with an entirely different vision, but then worked within the precepts of that, those particular wording around how many people could attend, how often, and maybe they're not as low-key. Maybe it's the Association of Norwegian Death Metal assemblies. You know, I just could see how far that could go. Is there ways of tightening the land use wording to prevent that kind of transfer of use on the land?
Through the chair, thank you for the question. I can say that's one of the aspects that staff have been looking at in conjunction with this application, and have been working with the applicant to try and at least limit the uses somewhat. The zoning bylaw we usually try and keep very clear regulatory-wise, so terms that need to be interpreted are kept out of it as much as possible. I think in their the documents the art farm provided, they spoke of family-friendly events. Like, that's a kind of term we wouldn't usually typically put in a bylaw, because it is hard to determine what is family-friendly and what isn't. We have also kind of engaged a little bit with our bylaws staff in terms of how they would administer kind of some of the kind of uses that are there. I know some of the concern was around noise, so we do have a noise bylaw that does speak to kind of the impacts of noise on neighbors, that it's generally in keeping with the kind of other types of uses you might see in a neighborhood. And noting this property doesn't allow for kind of agricultural uses, could allow for kennels, those kind of things. So that would be factored in when they're considering the uses. But you are kind of correct that what the bylaw says is how we would ultimately administer the uses that would take place on the property. As is noted in the report, we're also looking at like an additional covenant we may register on title, which also may give staff a little bit more of an ability to kind of administer some of the uses allowed. You know, it's noted in the bylaw that they're allowed 10 events total per calendar month between certain hours. So that covenant would include some details of staff's ability to ask the property owner to provide us with a list of the events they have planned for a calendar month, so we can monitor that. We're also looking potentially at the possibility of trying to add a little bit more clarity around the types of uses. You know, for example, the document that's provided as part of this report, we could look to maybe append that to a covenant to give a little bit more sense of the types of events. But you are correct, yeah, if someone else was to buy the property in the future, they would be subject to the zoning that was on the property. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Director McMahon, do you have a question or comment?
Yes. Couple of things. I was here for the whole situation with Persephone, where we also did I believe it was a zoning amendment. There was and there was a covenant put on the property, but then it turned out the covenant was too restrictive, so they were back again to try and amend the covenant, and it was quite a saga, and the neighbors were not happy, despite the fact that Persephone is a much larger property and considerably farther from neighbors. And so I think it sucked up a lot of SCRD time with bylaw enforcement and planning staff and everything else trying to administer this this situation. And I can see something like this being the case here too. What was the other thing? My brain is stopping. Okay, this is basically a home-based business. Does this fall under our home-based business regulations at the current time?
Staff.
Through the chair, I think home-based business limits certainly the number of employees you can have as part of the business, and so this would certainly be exceeding that, and I don't believe it would allow for assembly use on the scale that's being proposed.
So I'm going to, as this is my area that I represent, I am going to put the recommendations on page 45 for consideration, including that this move to second reading and a public hearing. But I do, before that's seconded, I do want to say that the report provides an interesting concept that I do understand is part of the official community plan for Area F. I think there is a rationale for additional auxiliary buildings, given that they've waited for bylaw 722 to come through for additional having a suite within their homes. There is some merit to this. I also have initial concerns about how the wording for assembly use is presented, given that although this particular group of people have a great position in how they support groups that are generally not groups that we support in I'm losing myself a little bit here. In Area F, we do need this kind of connections, but the assembly use on this particular property I do have concerns about, and I would be looking for further clarification as how neighbors' peace and quiet could be protected, and how this relates to land use in the long term. They have a business case, that's fine, but how does it impact land use over the long term? That is going to be where I'm focusing on this, and I do want to acknowledge that I have concerns moving forward. So I would put the recommendations forward. Do I have a seconder? Yeah, and I guess before that, we'll have to get volunteers for the director who's going to chair the public hearing, and I would assume I could be alternate chair for that. Director McMahon, you have a process question?
Yeah, I do. If we wish to change the notification distance, should that be part of this motion or should it be a separate motion? So if I was going to suggest that the notification be 300 meters, which I believe will cover all the streets. This isn't a sort of well, it's not really a cul-de-sac, but I think 300 meters would cover Cascadia Parkway, Storvold Road, and the other road there, Ray Road, which are the ones that would be affected by traffic, right? So should this be part of, should this be an amendment to the recommendations, or should it be a separate motion?
Yeah, I was going to look at that as a separate motion. At this point, do I have a volunteer that would be delegated as chair for this public hearing? I get a little myopic over here.
Happy to do it.
Director Gabias has volunteered, and I usually the director for that area stands as second chair. Alternate chair, I will be that person. So do we have a seconder for those three motions? Director Gabias? And I see no other questions or comments. I'd like to call a vote. All those in favor? And that passes. And then we have another proposed motion.
Yes, and you can correct my wording if I don't get it right, but that the notice for this public hearing be extended to neighbors within 300 meters.
And I'll second that. Any comments? See no hands up. I'd like to call a vote. All those in favor? Thank you. That passes. I'd just like to acknowledge the directors and the staff's patience with this. This has been a complex, long application, and it is delicate moving through the different aspects of it. It's quite complicated, so thank you for that. Thank you. Our next item is the Short-Term Rental Accommodation Act, Registry Launch and Principal Residence Requirement on page 99. Staff, would you like to introduce this?
Thank you, Chair. Last year, the province introduced the Short-Term Rental Accommodation Act, and the province has been rolling out pieces of procedure that are attached to that act since then. And there are a couple of pieces that relate to SCRD. So this report seeks direction and decision on the use of the province's short-term rental registry data and consideration of the principal residence requirement, which is a voluntary opt-in. And that option for opt-in exists every year for SCRD. Staff are happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Director McMahon.
Yes, I thought about this quite a bit because we do have some notorious party houses in my area, and we have a lack of tools to deal with them. But I think that staff's recommendation steers a reasonable middle of the road right now, given our capacity and a few other things. But I want to note that at the bottom of page 99, as part of registering, applicants must confirm that they are compliant with local bylaws. Like, who the heck is going to say no? Of course they all check the yes, I'm compliant box. And this is what I've heard from other rural directors, is that that's what everybody's doing. So how is it established whether they actually are compliant?
Staff.
Thank you. The Provincial Short-Term Rental Enforcement Team canvassed all local governments for copies of the relevant regulations. And so the registrar is aware of our regulations, and the information that's been provided to local governments is that the province will be making checks. We do not know at this stage what level of diligence will be accomplished, but if we become aware of registrations that are not compliant, we have the ability to follow up with the registrar and seek enforcement by the province. Thank you.
Another question from Director McMahon.
Yes, so I'll try and put this as clearly as I can. For residents who are long-suffering neighbors of notorious short-term rentals, what opportunities does this provide for enforcement? Either under your recommendations, or if we were to go to full compliance with or sign up for the full meal deal with the registry.
Staff?
Through the chair, the registry certainly brings the possibility of new tools. The actual logistics and machinery that are associated with that, we'll have to see how they work. Not all noisy houses are short-term rentals. Not all noisy short-term rentals are out of compliance with zoning. So it's difficult to answer a general question with specific answers, but there, in addition to zoning regulations, there are other bylaws such as SCRD's noise bylaw that may be brought to bear as part of an enforcement effort. Thank you.
Director Gabius, you have a question?
It's not a question. I would like to move the recommendations on page 99. I do think that they are the best way forward. I agree with staff's recommendations on that. Let's go ahead with the registry. It's not going to be perfect, but let's start it, see where it goes, and then and let's ignore the primary residence component for now because we have so many secondary homes and I guess if you want a seconder now, I'll just have a quick comment.
Do you have a seconder? Director McMahon, seconds.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
just-
you've got a follow-up comment.
I get asked a lot what's the deal with STRs in rural areas, and I typically will just find bylaw 722 and send that to the resident. And then I saw on page 101 so beautifully and so nicely stated, and I'm wondering if that's anywhere on the website or in the Good Neighbors guideline, or I'm not sure where it could be housed. Like as this nice paragraph under current STRD, STR regulations, it's just so clear. And I appreciated to see that, so I'm wondering if it can be housed anywhere so that it's quickly accessible for residents who have that question.
Staff?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, in the first sentence of the report, there's a hyperlink that links to a web page that staff have tried to make as approachable and plain language as possible. And I believe that some of that paragraph that the director is referencing is drawn directly from that web page. Thank you.
Thank you. They're way ahead of us. So, Director McMahon.
Yes. We'll see how things roll out over the next year or so, but I think that we're coming to the point where we should do a bit of a check-in with the community about where we stand on short-term rentals. It was a very hot topic back in 2018 when the zoning bylaw was first rolled out. I still get complaints, and I think perhaps it's hard to say what the situation is. So is there going to be an opportunity to check in with the community within the next year or two to see if people are content with how things are going, and also whether the more stringent bylaws in the municipalities have had an effect on the rural areas?
Seth, is that a clear question for you?
Fortunately, the board has directed us to review and update our OCPs and zoning bylaws. So that type of update absolutely and check-in absolutely fits. And I would also add that staff report quarterly on bylaw enforcement file types and resolutions, and short-term rentals are included as one category within those reports. Thank you.
Follow-up?
Yeah, I think I would personally be interested in knowing if there are, the number of complaints doesn't tell me whether we have a number of chronic properties that are the subject of repeated complaints and where compliance is not being achieved. So that would be of interest when we start reviewing the success of our regulatory approach to short-term rentals.
Was there a question in there or just a comment? Comments are fine. I don't mind comments. I see no other hands up, and we have a motion on the floor. If we're all ready to vote, all those in favor? And I see none opposed, so that passes. Thank you. So our next item on page 105 is the Development Approval Process Review Implementation, Local Government Development Approval Program Grant Contract Award. That's page 105. Staff, would you like to introduce this report?
Thank you, Chair. Staff are pleased to bring forward this contract award report related to development approvals process review implementation, and specifically related to UBCM's Local Government Development Approvals Program grant. The contract relates to SCRD's successful grant application for a project, which includes the following three elements: the development of a procedures manual framework and procedures manual information to assist development application processing, a detailed review of planning procedures bylaw, fees and procedures bylaw, 522, and other related bylaws, including delegation bylaw, which will be used then to inform subsequent bylaw amendments, and the updating of public-facing guidance on the development application process. The report recommends the contract for the DAPA implementation project phase 1 be awarded to KPMG LLP for a maximum contract value of $150,000. And the intent of this is that KPMG will act as a project lead, working alongside SCRD's planning staff to complete the project by the required deadline of May 29th, 2026. Staff are happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Any questions, directors? Director Gabius.
Thank you, Chair, and I'm going to assume that staff is quite happy with the work that KPMG has been doing so far. That seems to be a given. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think they...
They can't really.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense if they've been part of that project from the beginning. So to start from scratch with another consultant might be a little disruptive. So I'm happy to move the recommendations on page 105.
Do I have a seconder? Director Lee seconding. I see no other hands up. If we'd like to, we're ready to call a vote. All those in favor? And that passes. Thank you very much. So our next items, we have the Electoral Area D, Roberts Creek Advisory Planning Commission minutes. Do we have anything arising, directors? It's just received. Yep, go ahead, Director Bax.
Yeah, thank you. I attended this meeting, and I think the amount of detail that's included in the minutes is really worth a read. It does talk of the OCP renewal process and how the APC wishes to engage, and so I think it's often we get these minutes and they're quite plat, and but this particular document does speak a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bax. Our next item, we've got no communications outlined. We've got no additional motions, no new business. We don't have an in-camera this time. We do have members in the audience who may or may not want to speak, but we do that after our meeting. So at this point, do we have a motion to adjourn? We've got a mover, seconder. All those in favor? Thank you very much for putting up with the slight confusion over a variety of items, but I will get used to this. Thank you. So now I'd just like to take a few minutes. Would anybody in the gallery like to speak? We have a couple of speakers here, and if you'd like to just identify who you are and roughly what area you're from.
Yeah, I'm Rob Schmidt. I live at 1785 Storvold Road, one property over from Deer Crossing Art Farm. I've been here roughly about 2 years. In that time, we've gotten to know most of our neighbors who all have concerns about this art farm. Not so much what they're doing, but where they're doing it. The large number of gatherings of people in this area pose a fire risk to the neighborhood as well. As you mentioned about Persephone a while ago, Persephone is in the fire protection zone. We are not. 5 gallons of water in a fire extinguisher in a crisis is not going to solve their problem. Aside from that, there's noise that comes from this property on a regular basis. When bylaw enforcement is called, by the time they show up, it's gone. So who enforces all of this stuff on the weekends? Who enforces this stuff in the evenings when we're trying to have a restful night in our homes? I think a bit more thought has to be put into this. This is a rural property and they are running a business. And that business does infringe on our privacy at times when they get noisy. Just I'd like the council to consider that going forward, please.
Good morning. My name's Mark Storvold. I live in 1737 Storvold Road, the property just south of 1747, Deer Crossing. And over the last several years, our life has been at hell. This group of neighbors are so loud, there is literally nowhere in our yard we can go for peace and quiet, including inside the house. And it's on a regular basis. Last summer, for instance, when they had their putting on their circus, well, the circus goes out to, wherever event they're having, wherever location they're having it. But we put up with it for 2 or 3 weeks before that. And it's every day, 30, 40, 50 people in the yard, and it's loud. There is nowhere to escape from this noise. As far as fire, Rob brought that up a few years back. You never know who's in this yard. The owners may or may not be there. And I got a call from some neighbors asking if there was a problem. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, well, we smell smoke. Now this is I think it was in beginning of August, definite fire ban on, full fire ban on. And so I go next door and there's a fire in the middle of the yard, nobody around. Grass is like 6 inches or a foot tall. So I put it out myself. This has happened twice over the years. And my wife and I have spent the last several years trying to get this operation stopped. She has done lots of research and sent to the regional district reams of violations that we got no response on, zero. We had a visit from a bylaw inspector last summer, courtesy call. He all but told us that most of your bylaws cannot be enforced, and for us to basically stop complaining. And he said his hands were tied. I don't know where we can go from here. We've been trying to get this stopped for literally years. I have no idea how it got to this stage. We've had a couple of conversations with Nick. He's in possession of what I think is a character assassination letter written on me, against me. And he's also got the response letter. I don't know if anyone else has seen it, probably not, but this is what's been going on in this yard. This is not a friendly place to be anymore. So please take this into consideration. We cannot go on like this. Simple as that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I really encourage you that at the public hearing, provide details so that your concerns can be heard. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And Kate, thank you very much. You're the first one who's offered us any assistance in this. And we've been going at this for years. You're the first one. Thank you very much.
So with that, everyone, I think we are, oh, I don't see Connie. Is she, she's in the gallery. Okay. Do we? So no other hands up. Thank you all, and look forward to a smoother one next time.